Welcome to Mythical and Mystical Talmudic Teachings, episode number 4. Today we are at the very bottom of the page, Barachot 2b, Barachot Daf Beis Amud Beis. The rabbis have been discussing the correct time for the nighttime Shema, and they've said that it is when the night begins. And the Talmud continues here with a discussion around the definition of when night begins. And we have here the introduction of the idea of Bein Hashmashos. Bein Hashmashos, literally in between the suns. So is there a point at which the day has ended, but the night has not yet begun? And the Talmud says, Rabbi Meir says, I am speaking Ano abein hashmoshos de Rabbi Yosei koamina. I'm speaking about the twilight, the in-between moment of Rabbi Yosei. To Rabbi Yosei says, Bein hashmoshos keheref ayin. The difference between night and day is the blink of an eye. Ze nichnas ve'ze yotzei. As soon as this one comes in, this one goes out, and it is impossible to define that exact moment. So in our discussion of halacha, there are two understandings of when night begins. One understanding is that there is a point at which the day ends, and then there is a twilight which lasts between 9 and 18 minutes, and after which we have Tzei Sakal Chavim, the stars coming out, which is the beginning of the night. Rav Yosei, on the other hand, says that there is no difference. There is no in-between time. There's the ending of the day, and there's a blink of an eye, and then immediately the night begins. What is this? What is the spiritual teaching behind this? So if we think about it, the night is symbolic of the actions of darkness, the actions that are devoid of light, that are devoid of the presence of God. The light symbolizes our sacred and holy actions. And the question is, can it be said that we have good actions, evil actions, and neutral actions? So Rabbi Yehuda would say, or in one context, you might say that there are things that are not necessarily good, not necessarily evil. They are neutral. Rabbi Yosei, however, in his interpretation, his teaching in this moment, wants to say that actually there is no such thing as a neutral action. It's true, some things are commandments and some things are prohibitions, and there's a third category of things that are divrei reshus, voluntary, sort of matters of our choice that are not necessarily obligations or prohibitions. But if you look at life in terms of light and darkness, in terms of night and day, then even in our neutral actions, they could both be divided in terms of night and day. And the difference between this is very hard to distinguish, but there is no in-between. And this is the nature of our voluntary life, of our neutral, our seemingly non-sacred life, the life that is not of obligations and is not overtly dedicated to God. That it's EF Shalamorolov. It's very hard to distinguish and to say, is this human act, this voluntary act, was this sacred or was this dark? But in fact, it either is or isn't. And one of the commentaries on the Ein Yaakov says, look at the Marav, look at the nighttime prayer. We say, Umavir yom umevi loila, umavdil ben yom uvein loila. He makes day pass away, and he brings in the night, and he distinguishes between the day and the night. Umavdil ben yom uvein loila, Hashem tzvakos shemo, Lord of hosts is his name. And he says this means that really a human being he wants to say that a human being cannot distinguish between day and night, because that precise moment is very difficult to distinguish. God does that. But it seems to me that in this context, it might be said that actually the difference between day and night is whether it's dedicated to God. And in our own personal life, in our own seemingly non-religious life, we can either be living intentionally with the intention of serving our purpose, of actualizing our soul, of being directed toward God, or we could be doing those very same actions, acting on impulse, acting out of selfishness, acting not to actualize our spirit, but to actualize our own self-aggrandizement, trying to celebrate myself rather than what I can give. And so now it's our motivations are complex and difficult, and it's hard to distinguish sometimes, but there is necessarily the very same action can either be directed towards God or directed towards selfishness. So, ze nichnas v'ze yotze, this is directed toward the self, and this is directed outward. Are we doing these personal, private things for ourselves, or are we doing it with an outwardly directed intention? See you next time when we continue our discussion of mystical and mythical teachings of the Talmud.